What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin. The Red Sox actually made some really interesting moves yesterday. The first was to acquire a relief pitcher via the trade market. Now, the trade itself may not look as significant as some of the other stuff we've done this offseason on paper, but if you deep dive into this player and what it could mean for this Red Sox team, it does become a little more interesting. The second move they made yesterday was to make room for this relief pitcher on the roster. They DFA'd a player. Now, the player they DFA'd to make room for this relief pitcher may actually be more noteworthy than the actual trade itself. So what we're going to do today is we are going to talk about the trade. We're going to talk about what it means for the Red Sox, what this player could mean, why it could be an interesting move, and we're going to talk about why this 40-man roster decision and who they decide to DFA may be more significant than the trade itself. But before we get into that, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys leave a like on this video. It helps these videos out a ton and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start by talking about the actual trade itself. Yesterday, the Red Sox announced that they were trading their Double-A relief pitching prospect Jacob Wallace to the Kansas City Royals. Now, Jacob Wallace didn't have that much of a significant season with the Portland Sea Dogs in 2022. He finished 2022 with an ERA of 3.81, a FIP of 5.09 in 47 appearances. Now, what that probably means, the most standout number in those statistics is his FIP, sitting much higher than his ERA, meaning that Wallace got a little bit lucky with his pitching this year. His statistics should have been a bit higher, but his defense helped him out, which is something to definitely be concerned with if you are looking at a prospect. Now, there was some upside to Jacob Wallace. He had a really great fastball and a pretty decent slider, but this isn't a guy that most people would tell you should be losing sleep over losing. Most people don't have this guy panning out that well in the major leagues, so don't be too upset that we traded Jacob Wallace. Now, in return for Jacob Wallace, the Boston Red Sox received relief pitcher Wyatt Mills from the Kansas City Royals. Now, like I said in the intro, on paper, Wyatt Mills did not have that big of a significant impact on the Kansas City Royals. In fact, he was traded to the team from the Seattle Mariners last season, and in total for his 2022 numbers, he finished the year with a 4.60 ERA, with a 1.33 whip, and about a whole point lower of a FIP, sitting at 3.62, which is a pretty good sign because unlike Jacob Wallace, that means that Mills was a little bit unlucky on the mound and his ERA probably should have been a bit lower. He also had an 88 ERA plus, meaning that he was about 12% less productive than the average pitcher in baseball, at least statistically in 2022. Taking a look at his Baseball Savant page too, there are only a couple of numbers on here that they compare to the rest of the league. One of them is fastball velo, which isn't exactly Mills' strong suit. Another is his fastball spin, which really isn't his strong suit. He's in the bottom third percentile for all of Major League Baseball, meaning that there's only about 2% of players in Major League Baseball who have a worse fastball spin than Wyatt Mills. One of the good statistics on his Baseball Savant page, though, is his extension on his pitches. He's in the 87th percentile, meaning that only 13% of players have better extension than Wyatt Mills in baseball right now. And again, that's another good sign. So if you take a look at his statistics, on paper, they aren't exactly fantastic, but if you look at certain statistics, right, the fact that his FIP was much lower than his ERA, the fact that he's one of the best extensions in baseball, there is something within there to be a little bit excited about. To me, that's not the truly interesting part of this trade. What is truly interesting about this trade is hopefully something you guys have been able to pick up on as I've been showing you these highlight clips. If you can't tell yet, or you haven't been able to figure out what I'm talking about, take a look at his delivery. Does it remind you of anyone on this Red Sox team? Possibly someone who had similar statistics coming into 2023, who really broke out and became a staple pitcher on this Red Sox team? The answer is John Schreiber. John Schreiber and Wyatt Mills have a very similar delivery and arm slot on their pitches. They have that funky sort of wind up and release point that really throws batters off. Now, I'm not saying that Wyatt is going to be the next John Schreiber, that he could be the next John Schreiber, but it is very interesting that the Red Sox decided to go out and trade for a guy who has a really similar setup and delivery as John Schreiber. Maybe there's something there and the Red Sox believe that they can pull something out of him like they did with John Schreiber. Again, I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm not saying it's going to happen. John Schreiber is a really hard thing to replicate. Bringing him in and being able to fix something within his windup or release or grip or whatever it was and make him that dominant pitcher that we saw in 2022, but it could be an exciting sign. If the Red Sox were able to do it with John Schreiber, who's to say they can't do it with Wyatt Mills? Again, I'm not guaranteeing anything. if he has a bad ERA in August, don't come blaming me. Anyways, that is Wyatt Mills. And like I said in the intro, the guy who they decided to take off the 40-man roster for Wyatt Mills may be a little bit more interesting and may mean more for this Red Sox team than the actual trade itself. So let's talk about it. So the player that they decided to DFA to make room for Wyatt Mills on the 40-man roster was Eric Hosmer. Now, before we get into talking about why Eric Hosmer may have been DFA'd or whether or not he should have been DFA'd, I just gotta say, the fact that Ryan Brazier has survived, what, 3, maybe 4 DFAs in total this offseason, at this point is wildly impressive. I'm not even mad anymore. I'm just impressed that he's been able to stick around. Now, obviously, he has very little control as to whether he gets DFA'd or not, but still, it is wildly impressive at this point that he is still on this baseball team. But as for Eric Hosmer, I think we could all agree that we probably saw this happening at some point this offseason. Now, maybe not a DFA, but a trade or something like that. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys did not have Eric Hosmer on your opening day lineup. But what this could mean for the Boston Red Sox is in the last couple of days, they have now DFA'd a shortstop and a backup DH/first baseman. Obviously, Eric Hosmer was going to be the backup first baseman if he started the year with the Boston Red Sox. But the problem with that is the fact that Tristan Casas is a lefty that likes to hit from both sides. And yes, he does struggle against lefties, and Eric Hosmer is fairly decent against lefties, but putting in a lefty to platoon with a lefty for the most part doesn't make a ton of sense. Eric Hosmer's true role going into 2023 with this Red Sox team, if he had stayed on this lineup, is he would have been a DH replacement or a true backup first baseman. You couldn't platoon him, you couldn't play him against certain matchups, right? He would just sort of be there if Casas went down or was truly struggling, which isn't a great use of your bench. So in my opinion, this DFA makes some sense. It makes sense that the Red Sox did not want to start the year with Eric Hosmer on their bench. But what I think this may mean, and this is me just speculating here, but it could mean that the Red Sox are looking to make another move. Obviously, we know that the DH position right now is not filled by anybody, and whether or not the Red Sox are planning on bringing in a true DH remains to be seen, or whether or not they'll rotate through guys. But with the DFA of Eric Hosmer, they could be targeting a right-handed first baseman to at the very least back up or platoon if need be with Tristan Casas. This could either come by a free agent, guys like Brandon Drury who can play first base, Trey Mancini. Obviously, JD Martinez can't play first base, but if they're looking for a true DH option, he is definitely still out there. Luke Voit is an option to bring in as a free agent, or they're looking to make another trade. They're looking to trade for either, again, first baseman or DH, which in my opinion may be more interesting. They do need still a pretty impactful bat, considering right now they have a couple of guys who are really great contact wise. The only one who has shown a true ability to be able to hit 25-30 home runs a year is Rafael Devers, and Trevor Story on a really good year. So they're still missing that impact bat. And to me, DFAing Eric Hosmer, DFAing Jeter Downs could indicate that the Red Sox are looking to add that power in a first base or shortstop position. Now, this is just me speculating. There hasn't been any rumors or anything like that, but to me, that makes the most sense. This lineup is still incomplete, and by being able to make room on your bench for a guy who could be a righty power hitting either first baseman or DH type seems like the direction that they are going in. But at the end of the day, right, this trade in actuality, will it have a huge impact on this Red Sox season? I'm not entirely sure. Wyatt Mills had a really rough year in 2022, and I don't know if he'll be able to fully turn things around in 2023 like a John Schreiber, like some of these guys that we were able to bring in, but there is still that possibility. So am I excited about Mills? Not particularly. Am I mad that they brought Wyatt Mills onto this team? No, I think this is sort of a dead middle of the road, sort of an interesting player to bring in on paper. As for Eric Hosmer, I think this was going to happen at some point. I think he was either going to get traded or fade. So I don't entirely hate this move either. They just need to be able to replace that backup first baseman, because we simply cannot go into another year relying on a rookie first baseman like we did with Bobby Dahlbeck in 2022. Now, obviously, those are two completely different prospects, but the idea of having a guy struggle hard at that first base position for the first couple of months of the year is something I have to imagine the Red Sox are taking good care of not doing. But that could just be my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below. What did you think of this trade itself? yourself? What did you think of the Red Sox bringing in Wyatt Mills? Do you think there's anything to it? Do you think it's any significance at all? And what do you think of the Red Sox DFAing Eric Hosmer? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you think it's going to lead to another move? Do you think it just means nothing? Let me know all your thoughts on these two topics down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seat.